Hello everyone, and thank you so much for joining me for today's class. Today we are going to look into the regulatory affairs and eCTD and their place within the drug development. So what are the topics that we are going to cover today? We are going to look into regulatory affairs in the drug development process. We look into the importance and role of regulation in drug development. We are going to look into the International Conference of Harmonization. Now we call International Conference of Harmonization International Council of Harmonization. Okay, I put that on purpose so that now you remember that ICH stands for International Council of Harmonization. Then we are going to look into the landscape of regulatory affairs across drug product life cycles. We may go over some information that you already know, but this is on purpose because we would like to, put the, I would say, the different important points of this presentation before we are going to go deep into details. Then we are going to look into introduction to the Electronic Common Technical Document, which is eCTD. I will talk about a brief history, and then we are going to look into the eCTD across the drug development and approval cycle and the basics of the eCTD, which is the Electronic Common Technical Document. Okay, so difference between CTD and eCTD. First of all, CTD stands for Common Technical Document. This is a structure composed of 5 folders, and we're going to add different information related to the quality, safety, and efficacy. And of course, we have another set of documents for the administration, so administrative documents that we have to add into the structure of the Common Technical Document. This is why each folder or each module, module 1 through module 5, these are folders, folder 1 to 5. And we have submodules. Submodules 1, so we have 1, 1, 1, we have 1, 1, 1, 1, for example. So we have some type of depth when we are adding information within the modules and submodules. This is what we call the degree of granularity. This means that when you are going to prepare your regulatory submissions, in CTD format, you're going to deal with 5 different folders that we call modules. In each module, you do have subfolders that we call sub-modules. Now, to what depth you can go to up to 5 levels. This is the 5 levels of that we call a degree of granularity. For example, you can have module 1, sub-module 1, sub-module 1, etc., down to 5 levels. Then I would like to talk about the eCTD, standing for Electronic Common Technical Document, which is exactly the CTD structure as per ICH-M4. You can find that on ich.org website. You go and click on the M section for multidisciplinary, and then you're going to search for the ICH guideline, ICH-M4, where it will tell you what is the structure of the module. So what sub-modules you have in module 1, what modules you have in sub-module 2. And then it will also tell you that as international standard, what types of documents have to be added into each sub-module. So once we are done with the CTD, we can now have it run by different softwares. We have several types of several softwares that will do the job of reading the CTD content. It will then create an index. So it will, if you open the file, which is a file written in the extended marked up language or XML format, you will see that when you run your CTD structure by a eCTD builder, that may be again a commercial software. Sometimes it's also built in-house by companies. At the end, you're going to get again your CTD, but you're also going to have a file in XML that is the index of your documents. It's not just that. Don't forget that the eCTD builder is not just going to create an index file in XML. It will also go over each and every document in your submission, and it will give them I would say type of checksum number, so that those documents, they become unique for that specific submission. Why? That's because when we are sending an eCTD through again, for example, the FDA gateway, we will submit that as the first, or this version 0. Usually this is in a folder that is called 00000. And then when we have a modification in a product monograph, for example, a modification in the product, for example, or the substance, any type of modification that need, I would say, a submission, a new submission, we are going to update the documents in the eCTD within the eCTD builder application. In this case, the eCTD builder application is not going to erase the previous version of the same document. So it will keep a file history. And how it does it? Through changes in the identification of the document. So you can have one document called XYZ, but the XYZ document can have different versions, version 1, version 2, version 3, depending on any changes made to the document. So each time that we make some changes, we resubmit through the eCTD the regulatory submission. And in this case, only the latest version of a document will be added and submitted through the e-submission gateway. But again, I don't want to go too much into details. We will go over the details in the next slides as well. So this is usually how we represent the CTD structure. It has 5 modules. We have the first module where we are going to add within the module and the sub-modules, or folder and subfolders, information about the administration. So if you are in Canada, the content and the structure of module 1, your CTD module 1, will be Canadian. And you can find the information related to the structure and what exactly are the names of the sub-modules and what documents have to be added into the sub-modules will be found on Health Canada website. If now you would like to, for example, go over a new drug application that you are going to submit to FDA in eCTD format, because it's mandatory, your module 1 of your new drug submission, so for FDA in eCTD format, will have a different structure. So the number and the names of the sub-modules for module 1 will be different. And you can find the, I would say, the guidance document for creating module 1 of the new drug submission on FDA website. So what I would like to let you know here is that if you would like to now submit your new drug application in USA, or new drug submission in Canada, or a marketing authorization application in for Europe, for example, in EMA, you will have to make sure that the structure of your module number 1 is made based on the requirements of each region. However, when we are looking into the CTD part, we are looking into module 2 through module 5. In module 2 through module 5, as per the ICH-M4 for the structure of the submodules and for how to even name those submodules and documents, we have the following sections. So in module 2, we do have a section for the quality overall summary, or QoS. We have a document for the non-clinical overview related to the studies that are done in animals. We have again also a non-clinical summary. Same thing applies to clinical trials, where we have a clinical trial or clinical overview and a clinical summary. These are all documents that are being added into module 2 and module 2 submodules. Now we went over module 1 and module 2. We know now that module 1 is administrative, and the content and the structure will depend on each country. That's why we call that not part of the CTD. Anything else, so for the CTD, we have module 2. We can also see here in this pyramid that we have module 3, where we are going to add within different sub-modules of module 3. So module 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, or module 3, sub-module 1, sub-module 2, etc. We are going to add information related to the quality of our product. In module 4, we are going to add into the module 4 submodules information related to the non-clinical study reports. And the same thing applies to module 5, where we are going to add information in different submodules of module 5 related to the clinical study reports. So now you see very well that for any company in any part of the world, they can easily, it takes time, of course. It takes up to, for 3-4 people, it takes up to 4 or 5 months to prepare, for example, an eCTD for new drug submission. When you make module 2, module 3, 4, and 5, they are universal. Everywhere we can use them. Where we have to change and adapt the content is where we are dealing with module 1, since only module 1 content is, again, required a different way, a different structure, obviously different naming conventions as well, or different type of information by different countries in the world. Okay, so this table is just showing the differences between the CTD and eCTD. As I already mentioned, the format of the CTD, as we can see in the structure, for example, we see that the format of the CTD is described in ICH-M4. And the format or the structure of eCTD is same as CTD. It has 5 modules. We can also look into the format, and we see that when we are looking into the CTD, it may be in a paper or electronic format, where we have 5 modules and we have to add information in those modules, but it can also be electronic, where we have to have an indexation of the content of the CTD. So it's going to be a file in XML format, in addition to changes to the versioning numbers of the documents that we're going to add into the command technical document or our submission. Okay, so why learn about the CTD? It's because it's a harmonized regulatory submission format globally. So the majority of the regulatory submissions are using this format. For example, if you would like to apply for an investigational new drug in the USA, you will need to prepare what we call an IND, investigational new drug. And this IND application is also using the eCTD format. You remember that triangle they showed you? So now I'm going to tell you that for the IND, the content for, again, module 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are, again, not at 100%, but they are to some extent different compared to a new drug application, mainly in module 1. So when you are going to prepare an IND in eCTD format, you have to make sure that you are using the structure of module 1 of eCTD for IND application. If you would like to apply for a a new drug submission or a clinical trial application in Canada, the same applies. It means that for a CTA, clinical trial application, you will need to go to Health Canada website, searching for the structure of Module 1 of the CTA application, and the Module 1 of the CTA application is again different from the Module 1 for the new drug submission. Here we are looking into in which countries we can use the eCTD format. Obviously, again, not all of the countries in the world are using the eCTD format yet. First of all, not all of those countries are having, activities in, I would say, approvals of the drug. Some countries, for example, they just import. But what happens is that, again, here, we can see the list of countries that are using, as of 2020, the eCTD, I would say, requirements or harmonization. We also know that there are several other countries that are implementing the eCTD, and again, this is because we need to have a standard or a harmonized way to prepare our submissions. Now here, let's go over the nomenclature, for example. NDA is New Drug Application. This is, again, for the US, and we submit our New Drug Application in eCTD format to FDA. We can also have BLA or Biological License Application that we can also we have to prepare using eCTD format, and we have to submit that to FDA. In Canada, we have new drug submission. It must be done in eCTD format, and it must be submitted through the, again, submission gateway. In Europe, we have the Marketing Authorization Application, or MAA, that must be prepared in eCTD format. In Japan, we have the JNDA, which is the Japanese New Drug Application. Same thing applies. It has to be done in eCTD format. And of course, these are just a few examples of several countries that we saw, again, in the previous slide, related to the requirement to send or submit the marketing authorization. Now, I would like to repeat that the marketing authorization for a drug is called MAA in Europe for EMA. It's called NDA for Health Canada in Canada, and it's called NDA for FDA in the US. Now, let's go over the next slide. Here we are looking into the International Council of Harmonization. So, the International Council of Harmonization is, it's an institution, I would say, that did write more than 60 different standards. Those standards are mainly for the food, drugs, and again, biological products, and they are giving us a set of standards in order to perform clinical trials, to perform inspections, to go over the good, I would say, practices. So if you learned about the good clinical practices, or GCP, good manufacturing practices, or GMP, good pharmacovigilance practices, for example, or any other type of standard requirements for different activities in the pharmaceutical, food, and biological products fields, you can find them on the ICH.org website. The same applies to, again, the ICH-M4, which is a multidisciplinary standard, and this is related to how we are going to prepare our harmonized submission folder, which is the eCTD. Now, again, reasons for eCTD creation is mainly for the harmonization. We need to have one format for all of the countries, Because if not, we have so many documents in the marketing authorization application that it's going to waste our time, because imagine that you don't have the same way to prepare your authorization application for a drug, for example, and then you have to redo everything from zero for country X and then for country Y. You know how much money, how a waste, I would say, we have. And it's not just the money, it's not the time, but also it's also a question of harmonization. That's why when you are preparing, for example, your marketing authorization for 6 countries, you need to prepare module 2 through 5 applicable to all of the 6 countries. But you only need to prepare module 1 for country X, module 1 for country Y, module 1 for country Z, etc. So only module 1 will be different, and they have to be prepared based on the required structure for the eCTD by each country. Again, the content of documents, they don't change, but the nature of the document and the way that those documents are presented in which folders or its I would say module or submodules will be slightly different in between countries. Now, for the state of harmonization, I already showed you a slide. Okay, we have several countries that are still implementing the ICH-M4, and it just takes time. Don't forget that the first time in Canada, I remember that that was Mr. Bob Capitani. That was in year 2000, where we met again in a big, very big meeting with all of the pharmaceutical representatives, and we had a presentation from Bob Capitani from Health Canada in year 2000 for talking about the implementation of the eCTD. And again, now 25 years later, we see that it has been implemented, I would say 2-3 years ago. So it did take about 20 years before the eCTD was implemented even in Canada. So it takes time, obviously, but this is an ongoing process. And again, now knowing and learning and being able to prepare those submissions using the eCTD format is key. It's a key knowledge. Now, for FDA, for example, I can give you just a state of the harmonization. In 2017, for example, all of the new drug applications, abbreviated new drug applications, biological license applications, they were all needed to be submitted in eCTD format. Now, in 2018 in the US, again, the master files and investigational new drugs, or INDs, they also, again, they had to be submitted in the eCTD format. Same thing applies to other countries as well, but that was just an example of the implementation that takes time. It takes time. It's over years that we are going to implement, again, that those type of standardization or harmonization. Now, for the world, again, we can talk about the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, Asian. We can talk about the East African Community, okay? We can also talk about the Pan-American Network for Drug Regulatory Harmonization, or PANDRH. So, again, this is something that is happening. It's being implemented regularly, and again, this is the way to go for everyone, having a harmonized way to create or make our submissions, which is based on the ICH-M4. Let's talk about the regulatory affairs across the drug development life cycle. So we know that we have a strategy when we are preparing a drug. First, we are going to look into the research and discovery phase, where it will take several years in order to find a drug, make it stable, learning more about the drug, looking into different formulations that we can make. Is it a liquid formulation? Is it a capsule formulation? What type of formulation we can make, and how we are going to make sure that the product that we are making is going to stay, of course, on the shelf, active, obviously. But after this, we will need to go over the non-clinical development, where we are going to look into testing products, several products, of course, or thousands of products sometimes, in order to look into their involvement in the physiology, or maybe I would say better to say biology of the cells, and of course the physiology, which is the science of how organs work. So we start looking into different compounds, making them stable, testing them in a non-clinical development phase I would say on cells, on sometimes organs, but they are isolated. And then we are going to start looking into animal research as well. Everything is happening during the non-clinical development. Non-clinical, it means non-human development. Then we are going to continue with clinical development, where we will test the pharmacology of our drug in phase 1. Then we are going to test the drug in patients with some disease condition, and it should be about 100, 200 patients. This is in phase 2, where we are testing the safe dose range coming from phase 1 in phase 2 patients with a disease condition. Then in phase 3, we are going to look into statistical analysis, where we need to have a larger sample size. Hence, we will need to look into again the effect of the drug in a larger population, and using the statistical tests and of course different protocols, we'll be able to show the efficacy and safety of our drug, where after phase 3 we are going to prepare our new drug submission in Canada, new drug application in the US, or marketing authorization application in Europe or in other countries. We also have a post-approval life cycle, where we will need to not only, we can always, I would say, have different studies in order to understand more about the safety or efficacy of the drug for the same indication for which it has been registered, but we can also look into pharmacovigilance or pharmacoepidemiological studies, where we are going to look into adverse drug reactions, searching for any potential untoward medical occurrence experienced by patients using our drug. So we never stop monitoring the safety and the efficacy of the product. And this is why we are talking about the post-approval life cycle management and pharmacovigilance. Pharmacovigilance is a science of collecting, assessing, reporting, and preventing adverse drug reactions. And adverse drug reactions is any untoward medical occurrence experienced by a patient using a drug related to the use of the drug. If not, if it's yes or no, we don't know if it's related or not to the use of the drug, then we don't call that an adverse drug reaction, but an adverse event. Now, coming back to the regulatory affairs across the product life cycle, we went over the development phase, where we have an advice on the development, we have scientific advice, we have, again, we have to go over the clinical trial applications, CTAs. In the USA, we call those INDs, or investigational new drug applications. In Canada, we call those CTA, or clinical trial applications. We also have to establish a strategy, and we are going, of course, to have projects. Hence, we need to have a project management strategy in order to test a drug. And we also have to now look into different types of studies in order to be able to claim the product information, what the product does. We have then a phase which is the approval phase, where we need to prepare the application for the registration of the product. This is where eCTD comes into place. And then we have now to meet with authorities. Now, in different countries, we'll need to submit our eCTD, but before that, we can have different types of meetings. For example, we have end of phase 1 meeting with regulatory authorities. We can have end of phase 2 meetings with regulatory authorities. We can have pre-submission meetings. It means pre-eCTD submission meetings with FDA, with Canada, with Health Canada as well. So these are all, I would say, authority meetings and hearings that we see here. Then we have to go through the electronic submission, through the electronic gateways on internet, where these are different websites where they are managed by regulatory authorities. Each pharmaceutical company has a subscription. They have different members or employees who can access the interface, and this is through the interface on the web that we'll be able to submit or upload our eCTDs. These are compressed files, and you know eCTDs, they have also an XML file, which is the index for all of the information in that eCTD. And of course, we have a post-approval phase where we talk about life cycle management and compliance, post-approval commitments, clinical trial applications, and of course, new indications, because when we are on the market, we would like to see if our product can be used for another disease, in another population, within another, I would say, age, for example. You know, usually drugs, when they come to the market, the majority, they are for the adults, but we didn't test them in the pediatric population or in elderly population. So in order to test a drug which is already on the market for a specific indication, if the drug is not registered for everyone, just for adults, we will need to go again and redo clinical trials in the pediatric population, because this is a new population for which we are testing, on which we are testing the drug, and for which we would like to register our drug. We can also have new formulations. So we have formulation which is a liquid formulation, but we would like to now have a formulation with a capsule formulation, for example. In this case, we have to go again over the clinical trials, because this is not the same, again, registration. And then we will need to go over another eCTD, another submission. And those, those, I would say, those activities are part of the product, I would say, regulatory affairs submissions life cycle. Okay, so here, of course, I already explained everything, so I'm going to invite you to read again these slides. This is related to the advice on development, the scientific advice, the clinical trial application, project management strategies, and product information. I already covered this part, of course. So here we are looking into application procedure, authority meetings and hearings, electronic submissions, readability testing, and labeling support. So on the right side of the slide, you can now look into different, I would say, different ways that we can approach those activities as well. Now, for the next topic, we also went over the post-approval phase. So that was the life cycle management and compliance, then post-approval commitments, clinical trial application, and new indications. So now let's go over the various regulatory roles within the pharmaceutical field. So here we can talk about project management. I already covered that as well, telling you that for the project management, we will need to have a strategy. We will need to buy the supply, do research, enroll patients, dealing with key opinion leaders, dealing with the manufacturing, managing the laboratory activities. So they are all different projects, all embedded to each other. Of course, they are all, I would say, related to each other. And this is why we need to have projects. We need to have project management, I would say, plans, and overall a product can be a program. So it's like several projects, and we need several types of project management, or I would say tasks. And we are now going to have a program management with several projects inside. Of course, among those activities, we can talk about the submission management, preparing and even submitting those registration application. We can talk about maintenance, because we need to maintain the information related to a drug. Don't forget that when your drug is registered, it's not done. We have to continue to monitor the safety and efficacy and quality of the product. We need to continue to maintain all of the regulatory documents. So it's not a job that ends when you are just to submit your eCTD. Another important and very important key part of the drug registration is the CMC, or chemistry, manufacturing and control specialist, where these are again people who are in charge of preparing the CMC document that that we use in module 3 of the eCTD. And it has very specialized information related to the way that we are making the product, the ways that we are doing the testing, just for showing that the product that we are testing and we would like to put on the market is the one exactly that we are claiming to have. So it must be, it must have been prepared based on very strict chemistry protocols and documented as well. We also have, again, different roles. Another role is someone who works in the preclinical research or a clinical research specialist. We have labeling experts. We have people who are in regulatory intelligence, where they are looking into, other companies, other competitors. They're looking into even other countries and competitors, different compounds, but maybe also working on the same symptoms or signs and symptoms. So this is again for itself a big topic, a big, I would say, a specialty, becoming or being a regulatory intelligence specialist. And of course, we have the global versus local regulatory affairs, because when we are dealing with a product, looking into the safety and efficacy and its quality, obviously this is universal. However, different countries have different rules and regulations, different way of submitting information, different ways of connecting with the regulatory affairs authorities, different forms, for example. So we still need to have people not only working globally, but also in each country where we are, again, having our regulatory activities. Let's talk about introduction to the electronic common technical documents. So this is a collection of documents that makes up a larger dossier. eCTD is a format or roadmap for how to submit a large collection of individual documents. So it's not for itself a document, it's not a big document. This is a structure of 5 modules having sub-modules. Now we are going to we have to create smaller documents and less large, of course, documents, and we have to add those documents into specific sub-modules. So it's like having a 6,000 page document. Each, I would say, and it has different sections. Each section is having a very specialized information related to the quality and safety and efficacy of the product. And now we need to just cut that document into smaller pieces, relevant, of course, to specific review that is done by regulatory authority agents or officers. And we have to put those smaller documents into sub-modules. That's how this eCTD is structured. Now, I already talked about the fact that, yes, we can have INDs, investigational new drugs, for FDA in the USA. We can create a marketing authorization application for the European Union, EMA, or European Medicinal Agency. For Health Canada, for example, we can create new drug submission, NDS, or CTA, clinical trial application, all using the eCTD format. Now, the common technicals that are submitted as part of the eCTD are the following. We can have non-clinical and clinical study protocols. We can submit non-clinical and study reports. We can send clinical protocol amendments through the CTA or clinical trial application or IND application. We can also apply for regulatory meeting briefing packages, sending them in order to have the pre-IND or end of phase 1 or end of phase 2 or pre-NDA or even pre-NDS meetings that we are going to ask in order to go over our application and the content of the application before submitting that for review and hopefully approval by the regulatory authorities. Now, the electronic common technical document is one of the many ways in which the FDA and other drug regulatory bodies around the world are continuing to align drug approval strategies ultimately for betterment of the society. So we already talked about the fact that it has been developed in 2002, and this is still being again implemented in different countries. In Canada, it's already implemented. In EMA, it is already, or European Union, EU, it's already implemented. In the US, it's also already implemented. Now here, this is just to review, mainly for talking about the non-part of the CTD, which is the Module 1. Please make sure that you always remember that Module 2 through Module 5, they can be done and they can be used in any country, while Module 1 is regional. It will depend on the structure required by again different regulatory authorities in different countries. So Module 1 structure with the Module 1 sub-modules and the required contents by Health Canada are different from Module 1 structure and content required by FDA, etc. So here, just to repeat, we have Module 1, which is geographically specific documents, proposed labeling, risk management plans. In Module 2, we have summaries of quality, non-clinical and clinical data. In Module 3, we have the quality or manufacturing data. Among those, we can talk about the chemistry, manufacturing and control, or CMC document. We have in Module 2 the non-clinical study reports. These are preclinical data and toxicology studies. And in Module 5, we have clinical study reports. Now, the three main aspects of harmonization of the eCTD are the following: the quality, efficacy, and safety. And of course, when you go to ICH.org website, you will see that you have different sections for Q, quality, E for efficacy, S for safety, and M for multidisciplinary. And when you're looking into finding out the standards for creating an eCTD, you have to go to ICH.org website and search within the multidisciplinary section, or M, ICH-M4. Now, the common technical document, as I already explained to you, is divided into 5 modules. Those modules are already written in this slide. Now, I would like to go deeper into the discussion with the ICH standards. We have 4 overarching guidelines available from ICH that provide granularity on contents of each module. So overall, if you would like to create your eCTD, you have to rely on and use ICH-M4, which covers overall eCTD guidance. Now, if you would like to look into the quality information for Module 3, you have to refer to ICH-M4Q, Q for quality. If this is for the safety information, you have to refer to ICH-M4S, S for safety. And if you would like to go to, again, ICH regulations for the clinical information or efficacy, you have to use ICH-M4E version R2 in order to look into how you're going to do that work. Don't forget that the R2 versions, they change over years. For example, now we have GCP R3, version R3. In a few years, when the good clinical practice or GCP is going to change, obviously the R or revision number will change as well. Now this is just again a screenshot of the ICH.org website. You can see that again you have the CTD in the middle, but on the top right side you can also see different links to different sections of the ICH-Q, S, E, and M. And when you are going to go to the ICH-M4, you are going to be able to look into M4R4 now. You see R for revision number. We can look into M4Q for the quality, M4S for the safety, and M4E for the efficacy sections in the eCTD. So these are 4 different modules. And now, of course, here we can just see a screenshot of ICH-M4, where we have this triangle that or the pyramid that I already explained. Here we have the again screenshot of the first pages, cover page, and the table of contents of ICH-M4Q for quality. Here we can see the screenshot of the ICH-M4S for safety. And here we can see the screenshot of the cover page and the table of content of ICH-M4E for efficacy for clinical trials. Now we can also have again ICH-M2, which is related to the international conference, or here now it's ICH Council of Harmonization for again the registration of the pharmaceutical for human use. And here we can look into different specifications for the ICH eCTD. Now overall we looked into the product life cycle, which is related to the regulatory affairs across the product life cycle. We went over 3 different phases for development phase, approval phase, and post-approval phase. Then we talked about the research and discovery phase, the non-clinical, and then clinical development phases with phase 1 to 3. And then we looked into the post-approval life cycle. All of these different activities, I would say, or different I would say sections or segments that are involved in the product life cycle are all producing information, so documents that we are going to collect, maintain, keep them up to date, of course. And when we are going to look into the preparation of an eCTD for the registration of the product in a country, we are going to look into ICH-M4, and we are going to look into preparing the eCTD module 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so here, this is a real example of the eCTD. So when you look into the eCTD builder, you will see the modules in this way. So module 1 here is shown as 1. Module 2 is seen here as 2. Number 2, common technical document summaries. Module 3 is again shown as a quality. And when you look into the sub-modules, so for module 3 quality, you have sub-module 3.2, body of data, sub-module 3.2S for the drug substance. You have sub-module 3.2S drug substance, and then you're going to add information. So here we have a sequence number folder on the top. It's with several zeros. You have module subfolder like subfolder or submodule 3 for quality, and the remaining submodules or subfolders, they are called again leaves or submodules. And in each of these submodules we are going to add a document related to the submodule as per ICH-M4 and of course M4Q, S, and E. And these are what we call leaf files. So when you are going to prepare or work on your eCTD, this is what you see, and it is shown as a pyramid with module 1 through module 5. So here, this is like again showing to you Again, another screenshot. So when you're going to look into your drug, you will see that you have, for on the left, for example, look at the table of contents. At the bottom, you have the number 045678, which is the just an example, but it could be 001, 0002. And then, sorry, the first one is just for the drug, but you have 001, which is the first submission. Then you have 0001, which is the second submission of the first submission, but only with a few updated documents. And here you can now look into the module, module M1 US, because this is module M1 made for the USA. So the structure of the sub-modules are based on FDA requirements. It could be CA for Canada. Instead of using US here, you could see CA, and then you would see the structure of Module 1 required by Health Canada. So you can also, the same, you can go down, you can see the util or UTIL is again another folder that is created by the eCTD builder application. And it has several documents, I would say, sorry, several files. And you also have, of course, the index XML, which is, as you see, within the folder 0001. So when you open an eCTD, you're going to see module 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a folder called util, and then a file called index.xml. Okay, so here again, this is just an example of how a regulatory affairs professional is going to see his or her desktop. This is within the eCTD builder, where we have access to different drugs, different now submissions. Now those submissions, they may be 00, again, it says 000, the very first one. It can be the 0001, first updated one. You can have 0.00045. Because, as I told you, we maintain the documents at each time that we have notifiable changes. We are going to update the documents and we are going to resubmit the eCTD, which is not anymore, again, the application, but this is, again, the updates to the application that has been done the first time. Okay, so now here, these are the references for this presentation. I just want to thank you so much for, again, joining me for this very interesting lecture. I hope that you, again, enjoyed the lecture. Thank you so much.